Right, welcome back to the daily driven Alfa step nose project car. In one of our previous uploads we mentioned that we were still to remove all the brake lines, the fuel lines and the wiring harness along with the hardware that was inside the engine bay. As you can tell, that's all now come out, and it was relatively simple. Because this is a pretty original car, hasn't been molested, a lot of the brake lines etc. came out fairly easily, as did the harness. Now you can see along that area there on the driver's side, right hand drive, you can see the tabs that are used to hold the original wiring harness in place, and there are other tabs that you'll notice that are around in the vehicle as well. Even running down behind the cross member here, you'll see these tabs that are sitting down here, along and up through this area here. That's for the main power cable from the positive power from the battery across to the starter motor. So what I'm just going to show you now is the wiring harness that came out, and we had to be gentle with it. It's been sitting for a number of years, but it's in fairly good condition. A bit of the wrapping's a little bit brittle. But really what we've done is we've tried to break this up for you so you can see, in essence, they're quite a simple car, and there's two components to the wiring harness, two main components. The first component that you see at the front here is the fuse box, and that sits on the driver's side wing, and you'll see where that was removed over in this area here. That's that there, and this harness ran forward along here to the horns, and then we had an element that ran down through the front of the cross member here, up across and connected to the generator, and also some of the lighting on the front headlights, side repeaters, as well as the driver's side. The rest of the harness then goes through the rest of that penetration through the driver's side firewall there, and in behind the car, the firewall on the interior. And you'll see that there's tabs up in here that hold this harness in place, and a lot of that harness sits up in this area here. Some of it runs down, one component runs down and then attaches to the rear wiring harness, which then runs along this floor section here. And you'll notice that there's one tab here at the front end. There's nothing sitting along this area here that indicates to you naturally that there's a harness, another tab here. Sometimes these are missing. And then that rear harness follows up over the wheel well and runs through a penetration, through the back here, and into the boot cavity. Running down, you can see here's another tab, and runs down through this area, along the perimeter, all the way along, and clips in. So you'll see those areas along there. So at the back end here, that's the rear harness there. Very simple, carrying some of the wiring for the rear lights. You can see some of the shape where it's actually been running along over the wheel well and then along the floor section. These two connections connect up into the harness at the front end under the dashboard. And here you can see the front harness where there's one connection there, and there's another connection there. The rest of the wiring harness here looks like a bit of a rat's nest at the moment, but with the wiring diagram that you can get online, they're not too bad to follow if you just do it one wire at a time. And with these original wiring harnesses, you've still got the original wire colours. So you'll see black and white stripe wires, etc. The new harnesses that you get from Alfaholics or Classic Alfa, you need to watch those, because some of those don't intuitively fit all models. So quite a number of wires that come out. best way to do this is test each one. We'll take all these old masking tape labels off, we'll relabel them, and that way we'll test them and make sure that they are good before we start putting anything back in. From the rear of the fuse box, you end up with one main trunk that comes out of the back of this fuse box here, and you can see the fuse box on these early cars is basically a Bakelite component separated by a rubberized insulator and then put onto a frame that bolts to the car. Coming out of the bottom of that, the wires break away into two trunking sections. The main one, this one here, runs back, and you can see this is where the penetration was into the firewall, goes to the ignition, underneath the dashboard, the lighting, etc., foot pump switch and the like. Then this next section here is the one that runs along the front guard of the car and then feeds through to the horn, feeds through to the headlights, and here you can see one of the old headlight rubber protectors as it went into the headlight bowl, and then these ones feed off onto the side repeaters, and that's, as you can see, a pretty old and perished rubber protector for that. So fairly simplistic. So really, if you take it easy with these things and pull them out, you can get them out in one piece. We suggest that you pull them out, lay them out, and then start to label them using a wiring diagram, and then go along and multimeter test all your wires. If your wiring harness is too far gone, then it's probably a good idea to buy a new one through one of the providers overseas. Anyway, just a quick sort of outline of the wiring harness, how it looks, and the relative simplicity that these cars have so far as wiring goes. Right, next phase for us, into repairing some of the rust. Hope you enjoyed that.